Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm gonna show you how to use the vector function in the XCS software to make your own little laser cutting projects like this little cross pin that I made. So here we are in the XCS software. So you can see I am zoomed in quite a bit and I'm on the top left corner. This makes a lot of sense for working with vectors. The reason why you want to work with vectors in the first place is because now you can easily adjust all your measurements of your workpiece later to make adjustments, and you can define all the shapes very nicely. And it's also universal, so you can export your vector that you made in here as a standard SVG file, and you can put it in any other piece of software there is that can work with SVG files. So you are not locked into this specific software. So we're gonna start off by pressing either P on your keyboard or clicking on this vector here. And we're gonna create our first one. Just put it on the top. Just gonna make a line. Right click and then click on done. And now we have our first line. On the top left here, on the very top, we can see the coordinates of our starting point, and on the bottom we can see the dimensions of our line. Obviously it doesn't have a height because it's just a line, doesn't have a dimension in this, and the width is how long the line is. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna put 0 here, so that means the start point of our vector is on 0, 0, and this is very important because it makes working with it a lot easier. Now we want the line to be 27.5 millimeters. And now we have made our line to the correct size. To continue working with it, I'm clicking on the line and then go on to the setting here. And now we can see the two dots, and we would now be able to adjust it by just holding and dragging. What we need to do is we're gonna continue working with it by clicking once on it, and we're gonna make our second vector. This one should be 8 millimeters to the bottom. And then 10 millimeters in. Okay, now sadly in XCS it doesn't lock in at nice values. It would be, you can see I can't get 10 millimeters here. It's just always a bit buffer below, so we sadly need to adjust it later, but it isn't that much of an issue. Up to the left and connect it to the start point, and now our vector is done. What we can now do is adjust the size of all these things. So I'm gonna make this on, because this is on coordinate y0 and I want this to be 8 millimeters, I'm gonna type in 8. Now it is at the correct dimension. I'm gonna do this for the other one and for all those inner ones. You can even select multiple, you don't have to do it one by one. Click on one, hold shift, click on the second one, and now we can set 8 millimeters for both. And here it says mixed because obviously it has two different X values, and because, yeah. So now we have all our outer dimensions correctly set, as much as we want them. Now we can just check all of our measurements. Again, with Xtool, what you will sometimes find, and I have no idea why it does that, but sometimes it readjusts some measurements. As you can see, this is again at 10.3 millimeters for some reason. I don't know why, but just gonna set it back. It wouldn't have really mattered much, but it's just a thing to look out for. Just check over your measurements. And now we have our first finished piece. We can just click on ready here on the top, and we have our pin. So now we want a second pin and put them in one another. To do that, we're just gonna hit Ctrl C, Ctrl V. We're gonna make a second one right on the left. Now we have the two pieces here. Now we wanna create the cutout in the middle. For this, we obviously need to look at the complete size of our workpiece here. And we can see it's at, let's go into the settings and set this correctly. It should be at 26 millimeters. So that means if the height is 26 millimeters, our cutout needs to be 13 millimeters on one piece and 13 millimeters on the other piece. Now, putting this into this workpiece is, first of all, is not really possible in the software, and it's also not necessary because there's a much easier way to do this, and that is just, we are just gonna create a new vector that will be our cutout. So we want our cutout to be 3 millimeters wide, because that is the exact thickness of my balsa wood. If you have thicker wood or thinner one, you need to adjust it. So we make a new vector at 3 millimeters wide. And now just check over the sizing. Maybe set the coordinates to a point where it's easy to measure. Should be set at 13. Now we have a new vector that is exactly our cutout. We can click on ready. We can again copy this one because we're gonna need it 2 times. Don't forget to save. Now we can just take this vector and position it in the middle of this one. And then we're gonna take our second vector and position it in the middle of this one. We need to make sure it hooks incorrectly, but now it should work. It also sometimes, when the software fusses a bit around, it helps to zoom in. Make sure it is completely aligned. Now you can check if it is correctly aligned by looking at the coordinates. The center point, because it's 27.5 millimeter, the center is obviously half of it. Always helps to have a calculator ready when doing vector stuff. So the center point is 13.75. Now we take off half of the width, 1.5, so the starting point should be at 12.25 millimeter. It is not, so we're gonna force it to be there. For this one, we're just gonna need to do the same to make sure that it is centered. We're gonna put this at a starting coordinate of 30, so it should be at 42.25. This one, and we're just gonna set it there, 42.25. Now it is exactly in the middle. Now you can see why setting it at 0, 0 makes construction a lot easier, or at least choosing a value, because you're gonna use this setting quite a lot to position stuff. And now we have our 2 cutouts almost ready. We're gonna save it one more time in case we mess up here. And we're gonna select this piece, hold Control, select this piece, and now we can cut stuff out. And we're gonna click this option, and the vector is removed. We're gonna do the same, first this, then click the cut option, and it now should be removed if it was positioned correctly, which it is not, so we need to go back. I know what it is. We haven't set the size to be exactly 26 millimeters. Should have done this beforehand. And now we're gonna do both, select cut, and it is now removed. And we now have our finished workpiece, and we are ready to set it into the laser cutter. So now we are almost ready to put this one in the laser cutter. Just need to set the settings. On the Excel software, we have a few different materials. I'm gonna select 3 millimeter pine plywood and then set it to cutting. This always worked nice for me using the Excel settings. They are usually on the conservative side, so you maybe could go a little bit faster, but just to be safe, I'm using this one. So now we have a different problem to solve, because obviously our laser cutter has our laser dot has a certain width, and it's gonna remove material, and we want the fit to be perfect so that the two halves fit together without glue or anything. So Excel has a setting for that, and it is this one, right? It's gonna make everything a bit wider to the value we set it, to compensate for the loss in material because of the laser dot. And I'm gonna set it for my D1 with the 10 watt module at 0.1 millimeter. If you have a different laser, if it is stronger, the stronger the laser, the bigger the laser dot usually is, and that means you will need to make this a bit wider. It takes a bit of experimentation, but once you have it figured out, it should be set for a certain material and your laser, and you can always use the same value. Now we have everything of the set, and we can put a piece of wood in the laser and fire. And here is the finished result. These are the two pieces that we cut out, and as you can see, they fit together perfectly. The height is perfect. There's basically no play in them. You can see it goes up and down just a tiny little bit, but I'm also, bending the material. So the fit is pretty much perfectly. Maybe just give it, another 0.15 instead of 0.1. And it is absolutely perfect, and that way you can make joints without some glue. And you can also use these pins in your honeycomb plate to locate, round things with only one pin. So you would take this pin, put it in, and then put a round thing on here. It saves you space because you don't need two pins to locate it. That was already it for this video. I hope you liked it and you learned something. If you did, then consider subscribing and giving the video a like, and then I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.